Hey guys, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm Toy Guru Neitlich, or at least this is a Lego representation of me. I want to talk today a little bit about the legality and the inside scoop on using AI to develop art. And the reason is because I did this. I can't draw, and I used AI to help me draw a graphic novel that I created called Myth Wars, which is available on Amazon. You should check it out. But a lot of people have said, oh, you're stealing art. AI can't be used to do this. Well, I reconnected with David Schnider, who's a colleague, friend of mine, who is also a toy lawyer and an expert at this. So I wanted to find out from David, what is the deal with AI? Is it stealing art? Is it legal? Well, let's jump in.
Hey Scott, thanks for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you about legal issues in the toy industry, and we have an especially hot topic today in artificial intelligence. Many people today are using AI tools to write advertising copy, create pictures, even help design products, provide customer service. So it's a really new cutting-edge tool. And I am asked all the time whether or not these tools are legal and who owns the output created by them. And these are fantastic questions that are being dealt with in the courts even as we speak. And I would start with the tools themselves. There's sort of a fundamental question of whether large language models like ChatGPT and the image generators like DALL-E, are these the greatest creative tools ever or the largest copyright infringement in history? And we don't yet have an answer to that. So there are a number of cases that have been filed that are pending, and two kind of categories in general. So I want to talk about these. There was an author named Douglas Preston. Don't know if you're familiar with him. He wrote a novel named Jenny that was fairly popular. And Mr. Preston was searching the internet some time ago and was interested to see what the AI tools knew about his books. And so he did some searches and saw that they were familiar with his books and could summarize the plots. But the further he went into it, the more he discovered that they knew incredible details about his books, things that were not on Wikipedia or online summaries, and that they really could only have learned by digesting the entire books themselves. And so he realized that the AI models must have been trained on his works, and he never gave permission. There are a bunch of other authors who you may know more prominently, John Grisham, Jonathan Franz, and Sarah Silverman, who started to discover the same thing. And these authors filed multiple lawsuits, many of which have now been consolidated, suing OpenAI and other AI companies for infringement of their works. So these lawsuits essentially allege two main things. One is that just by scanning their works to train the AI companies infringed the author's copyrights. The second main allegation is that the output that those tools create, so the response to text prompts that ChatGPT gives you when it describes a book, or the images that image generators create, that those are infringing. Similarly, a bunch of artists filed their own lawsuits against the image generation AI companies, asserting very similar claims. They allege that by reviewing pieces of artwork, the AI companies in training their AI tools infringe the artist's copyrights, and that the output that those tools create. So when you go into Midjourney or DALL-E and you ask it to create an image, that those images are infringing because they use elements of the artist's work. Those lawsuits are all currently pending, and the AI companies in most of the cases have now responded, often seeking to dismiss a number of the claims. And the heart of their response is really interesting. There's a quote from one of their responses that I think is worth sharing. OpenAI said, "The purpose of those models is not to output material that already exists. There are much less computationally intensive ways to do that. Instead, their purpose is to create new material that never existed before, based on an understanding of language, reasoning, and the world. The models learn, as we all do, from what has come before. That passes with flying the colors the ultimate test of fair use." So what the AI companies are saying is, yes, we reviewed all your books and we scanned all your artwork, but we just use that as input to create something new. And so I think that's the fundamental question about whether what the AI companies are doing is legal, is it fair use or not? So there's a good analogy to think about this. If I were to walk into a museum of modern arts, and not something that's in the public domain, but new art, and I were to snap a photograph of a painting on the wall and then sell prints of that photograph, there's no question I've infringed the artist's copyright. Right? I'm taking an original work, copying it, selling it. But what if I walk into a museum and I take pictures of 100 pieces of work and then I create a collage with all 100 pieces? Now it's not so clear that I'm infringing. I'm not really duplicating the original work. I've created something new. And so maybe that's fair use. And that's the analogy I used to use for artificial intelligence. But actually, that's not even really what the AI tools do. So the AI tools walk into the museum, scan every piece of artwork that ever existed in there, and develop rules based on that. So they learn that every image of a car has wheels and a driver's seat and a steering wheel. And then when you go type a prompt into an AI image generation tool, it doesn't take bits and pieces of pre-existing work. It draws something completely new based on the rules it learned from those original works of art. It's very similar to what we as human beings do. And so that's the crux of the legal argument, whether that's fair use or not. So you may have seen headlines saying that a number of these cases have been dismissed and that the artists are losing. It is true that a number of the claims have been dismissed, but the key point here is that question of whether the AI training data is infringement, that is remaining and is still in every case. That's what courts are still going to deal with. The output side of it, the question of what the tools create, whether that's infringing, that has largely been dismissed. So the courts have said that even if the AI tools are reading all of this art and outputting content that is based on it, you have to look at each individual piece of art created by AI, or each text output created by AI. In some cases, it might actually infringe because a user gave a prompt to ask it to copy something. But the tool itself doesn't automatically infringe. What it does is creates brand new output. So what remains in front of the courts, and the issue we still have to deal with, is whether the training data, the reviewing all the books and images and other data on the internet without permission, is an infringement or not. And as I said, there are about a dozen, actually there are now over 20 cases that have been filed dealing with this issue. They're all still in fairly early stages. There is one case that is sort of marginal that involves legal notes that is supposed to go to trial in a month. That might give us some insight, but I think we're going to be dealing with this issue for a while. And I would not be surprised to see a settlement come up at some point. But in the meantime, there's a question whether or not these AI tools will be deemed to be infringing and have to pay to all the authors of the source material that they're using. So stay tuned for that. The flip side is, if you're using AI tools to create original works, if you're creating books, artwork, marketing copy, who owns those works? You know, typically if you write a piece of copy, you write a book, you write a marketing blog, something like that, just by creating the work, you own the copyright. So if you go in and use ChatGPT or Midjourney to create something, who owns the work? And the short answer is nobody does. The Copyright Office has said pretty clearly that copyright only exists in works made by a human being. There was, believe it or not, a test case involving a gorilla who took a picture of itself with a camera, and the zoo that housed the gorilla tried to claim copyright in that image, and the Copyright Office said, no, the gorilla is not a human, no copyright. The reason being that humans, need incentive to create original works of art, and computers and gorillas don't. There's a gentleman named Stephen Thaler tried to test this theory. He created an AI tool called the Creativity Machine that is an image generation tool, and he used that machine to create a piece of artwork. He submitted that artwork to the Copyright Office and told them very clearly that it was created by his software tool, and the Copyright Office denied him registration. He took that decision to court, and the court upheld it, upheld the Copyright Office's decision, and decided that he did not have rights in that image because it was created by a computer. There was another very interesting test case recently before the Copyright Office. A woman named Chris Kashtanova created a graphic novel called Zaraya of the Dawn, an adult graphic novel in which she wrote all the text, but all of the images were created by AI. She applied for copyright registration in the graphic novel as a whole, and the Copyright Office came back and said no. They said that she owns copyright in all of the writing that she created, but the images that were created solely by the computer, no copyright exists in that, which means, in theory, anyone can copy those images because she owns no rights. I know you, our host, created your own graphic novel recently. I just bought a copy of Myth Wars off of Amazon, where you handled all the writing and the illustrations were created with the help of AI. But that creates a really interesting question because there's a gray zone. In the case of Zaraya of the Dawn, it was very clear. The computer created the images, she created the writing. In the case of Myth Wars, my understanding is you did your own work, you created the images with AI, but then you added elements, you changed them. There's a human contribution to that. I think what we're going to see going forward is a lot of works where an AI tool is involved, but a human ultimately contributes to the work. And it's not going to be entirely clear what portion is copyrighted and what is not. There's a great Radiohead song that I thought was worth quoting over this. It's called Where I End and You Begin. And the lyrics are, there's a gap in between. There's a gap where we meet, where I end and you begin. And I'm sorry for us. The dinosaurs roam the earth, the sky turns green, where I end and you begin. And I think one of the challenges in copyright law going forward is going to be figuring out where the machine ends and the human begins, and what portion of the contribution is protectable and which is not. Within the context of the toy industry, I think this is important as people use AI tools to create their marketing copy, to design products, maybe even to handle interactions. For example, in video games, there are already non-player characters that are AI, where their conversation is AI generated. And a lot of that will not be protectable. So it's a real challenge for people in the toy industry to figure out what they can use here going forward, what protections they will have, and understand where their liabilities lie. It'll be interesting to see how the law develops on this topic, and I think in the next couple of years we'll get a couple of decisions that will help us figure it out. Thanks again for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk about these issues. I know there are going to be a lot of questions and details. I'm happy to answer those online as people post them. Take care.
Well, there you go, right from a legal expert. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you, David, for coming on the channel to add your expertise and legal opinion on not only AI-generated art, but how this is going to affect the toy industry, and what we should all kind of look forward to, expect, adjust our expectations, and understand. And hey, I'll throw in one more plug if you're interested. My book, Myth Wars, which does use AI art, but heavily modified, as David said, by a human. Every single panel, every image was rendered hundreds of times and then modified by me. All right, so yeah, check it out if you're curious. And again, thank you, David. And if you found this video insightful and informative, the best way to support it is to share with others. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.